I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Desiree Hurtak, musicologist, social scientist.
And I'm Dr. Desiree Hurtak. I'm a futurist and environmentalist, but I work a lot with sound vibrations.
And we've just come out with a new book called Sound, but the subtitle is dealing with everything connected with sound.
Right, profound experiences with chanting, toning, music, and healing frequencies. And we're excited to have our very good friends from Australia, Darren Curtis and Bradley Pitt. They're with Sacred Resonance, and they contributed to this book.
And they're also members of our Academy for Future Science, which explores the world of the future through consciousness, through music and sacred language. So welcome aboard, Darren and Brad. We appreciate all of the work that you're doing, all of the great research experiments that you've done with the plant kingdom. And the exciting title of your chapter in our book is Our Work with the Music of Plants. So how did you get started and why the plant world is so important?
Well, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you
for having us on.
Well, I guess why it's so important to us, I guess it's the environmental message. It's bringing people back to a certain connection back to the natural kingdom and working with plants and working with the environment. And Darren and I actually did a lot of work in our early years in environmental work. And we had a great interest in actually bringing this message to people, is to help them to find a new connection, a special connection with nature. So this has naturally evolved into working with our work with music, into working with the plants.
We've been inspired to bring those unhidden or those hidden worlds of those sound frequencies that the mystics talked about, those invisible realms, and to bring it into the visible, or bring it from the inaudible to the audible. The spiritual dimension had the spiritual sounds and what we call the sound garden, and how to bring that through and to give people experience of those invisible worlds, invisible sounds.
So we look back at musical history. Hermann Helmholtz, the great German musicologist, went into all of the mechanics of musical coherency, but it was not until the 1960s and 70s with Marcel Vogel at IBM, Chris Bird also working with various sound wave communications that even the American intelligence community used, that people discovered, wait a minute, there's a whole new area of biomusic that connects us with the minds and the properties of plant communication.
Right, and you have some amazing devices. I know we went to Damenhor, and they've been working with this for a long time. You've also developed your own way of hearing plants, and on the website connected with the book, we're going to have a little bit of plant music, but just talk about how you do this and why you started with it.
Well, we were inspired by one of our colleagues, Sam Cuscamano from Electricity for Progress, and he was trying to develop these units that allow it to take it from a very expensive or technical into a real portable process. So we could give people in the public or the audience through art an experience of these devices. So back in 2000 and the early 2000s, we had come across, of course, the work of Dr. Marcel Vogel and plant communication at IBM, and Cleve Baxter and Christopher Bird and The Secret Life of Plants, and just inspired, how can we bring this to people? How can we get people in touch with nature? And we contacted Sam from Electricity for Progress. How can we make these devices portable? How can we work with them on a smaller scale? We had met the Damaher community back here in Australia, and they had these large-scale devices that were quite expensive. And so we knew technology was getting cheaper. We knew that people want to explore more about consciousness or the research in the 70s. And from that, we helped with Sam develop these little small devices, which were Bluetooth and wireless, and allowed multiple of them to be used and start looking at the different rhythms of plants, even in our homes. And of course, then we brought it out to the public in art.
And also because we do a lot of installation work in our artwork that we do here back at home. And with Sacred Resonance, we've always been interested in looking at resonance and how everything has a vibration, everything has a frequency of resonance. So we've explored from everything from looking at the stars and measuring sounds, as in the cosmos of NASA's been doing, but even to our own biology. We've done even testing on our own body and produced sound from it. And of course, then looking with plants and other ways we can actually work with sound. So it's looking at a whole array of different ways we can work with music.
Well, I like to just say that you guys get people from the public together in arboretums, and you've hooked up about 15 plants, and then people walk and they're hearing the music of the sound. It's fabulous because normally people practically ignore plants, and half of people walk on top of plants if they are in their way. But now you kind of introduce the fact that these are living, we'll say, sounding thoughts of energy, of intelligence in a certain sense. Of course, that's what Marcel Vogel and Chris Bird were talking about. That
Secret Life of Plants, which is the classic, and the Keys of Enoch, which we wrote some years back, actually in 1973, really requires musical vibrations to understand the different levels of consciousness development. So your work with plant communication is so important because it's showing on a popular level that we're all interconnected. We are a unified species connected with the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and beyond. And it's important that we wake up and realize now we have an opportunity through new electronics and what we will call new breakthroughs to realize that we are a body electric. We are discovering that we can play on the higher keyboard or the lower keyboard with not only the plants, but basically even the angelic intelligences that the ancients dreamed about. We are a living keyboard. And I would like you to discuss a little bit more of why and how you came to work with certain frequencies.
Well, I just want to mention, when we're talking about the what we've done here and some of the experiences, I mean, we approached the festival here, which is the Adelaide Fringe Festival, which is one of the biggest festivals or art festivals in the Southern Hemisphere. And we've been involved in it for many years, but we wanted to approach our local botanic gardens here, or the Botanic Gardens of Adelaide, and to tell them we want to do this installation. We want to take people through an experience where they touch the plants and hear the music. And it was hard to convince at first. I mean, some of them thought we were a little strange what we're offering, but the response has been quite overwhelming. I mean, we've actually seen people have the most unique experience interacting with the plants. And how we sort of sold it to them and got some of the funding was to say that this is another way for people to relate to the plant kingdom, a more of a spiritual way to connect, that it actually, whatever you think and do and how you interact with the plants, do respond.
And I think this is also coming in the popular milieu of understanding of what's called plant bioacoustics. One of the head research fellows in Sydney now, Monica Galagano, she's from Adelaide, and she originally back in her research wanted to take a relook at this idea that plants and other trees are emitting sound. And now we're finding everything from ultrasonic frequencies that are emitting from flowers that bees can hear to clicking sounds that are audible in root systems of 220 hertz. There's a whole sound garden. And I think this is what the revolution about forest bathing is, and people moving back into nature. There's a whole lot of frequencies that were missing in the sense, the garden of creation, and putting people back in touch with that. People are feeling reconnected. People are feeling a rejuvenation of their spirit.
And I just want to, let me interrupt for a minute because I want to qualify what you're saying. For those people who hadn't heard plant music, of course, go to the website that's listed with the book. But, it's not just like a hum that you hear or one tone. And if you go close to them and you think about them or touch them, their sounds usually increase, and they do more tones. They do all different tones. It's an amazing thing. And if you leave them alone, sometimes they'll just go quiet. It's amazing that it's not just the sound of a plant. And I think that's important. We're saying that the same thing in the book regarding the sound of the body, that there's so many sounds in the body. The Royal Rife looked at coming up with one sound that would heal this or that. But what we're finding now in the 21st century is that it's a multitude of sounds. It's a whole symphony of sounds. And that's also what the plants seem to put out.
And this is why our book, with your contributions, is so important, because it illustrates the 7 chakras or 7 levels, from the microbiological to the vibrations of the human heart to the visualizations of coherency that the mind can program. So more music is brought into harmonics with nature, and even harmonics, what we call supernature or higher consciousness, can bring about positive resolution. Again, our motto for the Academy is there are no problems, only solutions. And that comes really through vibrations.
And Brad, I'd like you to continue what you were saying, but I also want to move into something that you helped contribute in the book, and that is a couple of pictures of cymatics. Can you also describe why that's so important?
I just want to mention first about how we got into it. We met in 1998, and we wanted to explore everything about sound and how it can put us into altered states of consciousness. So in deep states of meditation, we were doing transcendental meditation at the time. I started hearing other levels of sound, like the buzzing of bees, the ringing of bells, different chimes. And I started reading about this in ancient scriptures, that in different levels of consciousness, there's different levels of sound. And I thought, what are these sounds? What are these tones? And electronic music had just in the early 2000s just started coming into universities in Australia. And so we decided, well, how do we recreate this? We heard the music of Yassos. We heard the music of Stephen Haplin, interdimensional music and new age music. And we thought, we're also hearing these tones and frequencies. And it's from an overself level, as we had learned from the Keys of Enoch in our work. How do we bring this through? And we knew that electronic music and this binaural beats and these other frequencies that we could find could put us into this state.
And also we had this certain experience. I mean, when we're using certain chants and mantras, we had certain paraphysical experiences, which told us, a journey with sacred resonance. I mean, it's fine studying resonance, but we have to find the sacred connection to it. And so our journey has been finding the sacred component to resonance, to frequencies, because everything is frequency. Mm-hmm. And this was when we had an experience in 2009 during a festival where we actually had a plant up on the stage. It was really quite abstract what we did, but I mean, we put a plant on the stage, and we got the audience to interact with it, just to meditate with it as we played certain music. And this was inspired by a book called The Prelude to Landing Upon Earth. There was something mentioned in there about an osmosis effect with a plant, and it sort of inspired us to do something similar. Why don't we try this out? And even though it wasn't aimed at as a spiritual event, the audience had some interesting experiences, and people came up afterwards and told us how they had all these experiences where they, have visions of meeting, someone they've passed on recently or so forth, and healing. And we were quite amazed that there's more than just music going on or sound, but there's something else happening even as a biotransducer through the plant. There's some sort of interaction that we thought was unique, which of course in some of your books mentions this with the trees, and that there is this bioresonance or what you call, a bioantenna sort of effect with the plant kingdom. But also we did another experience with cymatics, is that, of course, if sound then produces geometry, and we know this mentions in 1 John, that we were interested then in Hans Jenny's work looking at cymatics. And so, of course, we had got a funding back again at another festival to try and actually recreate one of these devices. And so we did an event in these underground tunnels here, which we took people through an experience with cymatics and sounds.
But this also inspired us, the idea that we are living in a water biosphere. Our bodies are 60 to 70% water, and we're fascinated by whale communication and dolphin communication, and how sound travels differently through water. And could we compose frequencies and sound that work with water resonance rather than air resonance? And this is how we explore cymatics, and what we have all these different waves called solitonic waves and all these other exotic vibrations of sound. And we realized that the ancients, through membranes and sand mandalas, could use sound to create geometric patterns. And we realized then that certain mantras and certain sacred sounds produce certain geometric forms, not only physically, but also they understood this spiritually as well. And how could we recreate this to show people the power of sound?
Well, we are interested in our work with others like yourselves throughout the world, using mantra or sacred expressions so that the inner soundscape of the heart, mind, and spirit is activated and directed collectively to areas of the world where sound links can produce healing. Sound links can produce a worldwide global communication. Sound links can also be used for the new science of remote viewings that was studied and pioneered by two of my colleagues at Stanford Research Institute in California, showing that we're all linked through different vibratory levels. But rather than being on one level of classical music or one level of what we will call plant music, we're on all levels simultaneously. And that's the key and the genius of our book. Together, the soundscape of creation is working through us. And King David refers to us in the Psalms as really representing the kingdom of music. We are basically, shall we say, introducing the world to areas that are off the charts.
Well, I just want to say for people who don't understand what we're saying about cymatics, that maybe, Darren, you can explain exactly how you created the pictures that are, and I'm just going to put it quickly, in our book. And one is at 64 hertz, and you could tell that they're actually every frequency, pretty much every hertz, right, which is also cycles per second, has a different geometry. And so that's really important. So it's not just one geometry you get with putting out sound, you get actually the multitude. And some people are talking about, of course, sacred geometry. You're doing sacred resonance. Tell us just a little bit more about cymatics.
So basically what you do, you get a membrane or with sound on it, or this is in the work of Chladni's research, going back to Da Vinci, but more modernly with Hans Jenny is using speakers, audio speakers, and putting little dishes on there with water or other substances that had the viscosity similar to water, and more gel-based liquids. But basically we use water and producing a frequency, certain sine tones, but also audible chants that are recorded through the speaker, vibrates the membrane on the speaker and produces certain geometrical relationships. So we've been exploring different mantras and different sacred sounds and different frequencies. And we find this example in caves or in pyramids around the world, that the certain resonance of the chamber produces certain overtones and certain harmonics. Also, the dishes at certain sizes also produce different geometry. So ourselves, a vibrating membrane, not just the brain waves and not just the skin, but the whole body, the bone structure. A whole body is like a vibrating membrane. And so we're trying to show people that we are a living vibrating membrane. And this is what sound can do to us on different frequencies, all the way from the ultrasonic to the subsonic realms.
Well, certainly all life is vibration. And I have to say that Sacred Resonance, which is your organization in Australia, has put together a cymatic machine so you can film and gather the data, what sound and what geometry relates together. And then also, of course, even also for the plant. I didn't realize that, but you actually have created your own plant music device. That is just a little box that literally hooks into the leaf of the plant and the soil of the plant. And actually then with the speaker, these are all algorithms that are unique. And you get to start hearing these sacred geometries and sacred sounds.
So we live in an age. We live in an age of symphonic synergy, energy and sound coming from all directions, and we have natural coherency. But you obviously were brought into our teaching of the Academy because you were interested also in sacred resonance, sacred coherency. And that's a whole different idea of superimposing certain musical compositions on the human consciousness and raising consciousness so people can come out of a world of despair and violence into a world of joy and purpose.
Well, let me just add, so the last part of this book talks about the temples that we visited and the sacred places that you visited in Australia, and that you've done music and sound in these places, and the whole resonance is amazing. I think with you, Darren, we were recently in Chartres Cathedral in France, and that has an amazing resonance. And anyway,
so each sacred area of the world has a certain resonance, but now we need all of the sacred resonance points to converge, because our world, we believe, is going into planetary changes, and the vibratory rate is going to change for the human system. And we need to be prepared for what I call the fifth dimension, the elevation of consciousness to work synergistically.
Well, hopefully the right sound opens up the chakras in the body. And that's why at the end we put the different traditional sacred sounds for each of the chakras. And hopefully we'll be able to do some music related to this as well. We'll talk a little bit about the sacred zones that you've been in and how you feel the sacred resonance works.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when we first met, we actually went up into a local sacred zone here, which is in the Flinders Ranges in South Australia. And it's one of the major grid points. And if you look at the map of the Keys of Enoch that actually you see over Australia, you see the point on there. And Darren and I met there, and we had some profound experiences, like Darren mentioned, hearing music and having these other consciousness experiences. And of course, the Keys of Enoch was what brought us together. I had the Keys of Enoch, and Darren was also heard about it. And so naturally, we came together to work with it and use it. And by using the sacred mantras and the music, and Darren, singing, and we led groups up there to sing the names, we had very, very amazing experiences where we saw different paraphysical lights and certain things appeared. And it's interesting with geometry because when I hear music, I see it in color. And sometimes if I'm in a deep meditation, this is how we work together. When Darren composes, I also listen, and also, as in an artistic or like painting, paint the colors with it. And so we work together, try bringing the color and the sound together in a unique relationship. And which then allowed us, when we worked in these sacred sites, where we start composing music and sometimes even actually gone there to actually perform with no audience, just the birds and nature, and just created this unique experience where we can go into a higher state of consciousness. And
also your work, if I may carry on, your work has taken you into what is called axial tonal music, which of course accepts the fact that our human body is a coordination of different energy circuits. And if one can master the circuitry of the body, one can be in harmony not only with the physical environment, but also the greater environment of the earth itself and beyond the star channels the ancients connected with the acupuncture points of the body.
Well, my background is in astronomy. And so naturally, I was attracted to certain keys, like certain keys that talk about the axial lines that connect to resonating star systems. And I think Darren and I, we're wondering, how can we bring these two levels together more practically and experience this? And a lot of our friends were getting into things like drugs and stuff like this for experiences. And Darren and I were not attracted to that. We thought, if this is a real experience and it's tangible, then you should be able to do this without taking any form of mind substance. So we use music. We found that by triggering certain states of consciousness through sounds and mantras, we could go into those states and have certain experiences, which was a lot more profound than what some of these people were doing with just taking substances.
And we found this in the First Nations peoples and in different cultures around the world, in the sacred sites, within caves or within temples, understood there's certain resonance patterns within these chambers or within these caves that could put your brain waves and put your body into like alpha states, theta and delta states. And they're not over 3 or 4 minutes as we have now in the entertainment industry, but moving into 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes of actually into an hour of resonance of sound, where it brings your body into this state. And we found that using binaural beats and different other tonal frequencies, we could, as Robert Monroe showed in his work in using binaural beats at the Monroe Institute, we could go out of our body or have in what we call the overself reality. In a sense, the sounds of the overself, we could hear, and we could also work, as you were saying, through different paraphysical abilities of the mind to become more dynamic, to become more expanded, but to also feel a resonance of the heart and the mind coming together, to show that we can bring ourselves back, our body, mind, and spirit back into a balance to go through stressful situations or go through all these things.
And vibrational medicine, I mean, we were studying a lot of this years ago, and of course using music is to heal the body. And so with cymatics and all this showing, if there is a certain effect upon the water, then how is it affecting the water within our own body, and how we can create that resonance within ours that is unique.
Well, I just want to say, if people want to know more, they should get the book. And we do talk about the alpha frequency of the brain, which is connected with dream state and meditation, and also the binaural beats, which Darren has given to me. I sometimes use those. It's really creating that alpha state between comparison.
Your music is fantastic. We feel honored. I knew Igor Stravinsky, and with his Rite of Spring, he changed the musical world in the early 20th century. That we have the capacity to go beyond the normal training of music into higher frequencies. And with these higher frequencies, we can move rocks, we can teleportate objects, we can heal people, and even understand how the Great Pyramid of Egypt represents the different parts of the body and a sort of a synchronicity of initiation to higher levels of cosmology. So we're at a time of vast planetary, mental, psychological, and cosmological change. And music that is coherent, that is loving, that is divine-centered, is the spark of life that keeps us all together with a whole great future ahead of us. So I wanted to thank both of you for the great and excellent work you're doing in Australia. And again, through your work and through other musicians that were working in every country of the world, from Peter Volger in Germany to Paul Thomas Burns in Mexico, to those in Japan and China, We're all part of raising the consciousness with what our great colleague, Carlos Santana, calls the global tone. We want to raise our consciousness in a harmonic that can help all life, plant life, animal life, human life, in all cultures, because we are all together in sound through birth, through life, and through transition into the new worlds.
So
we
thank
also,
you both. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we also want to thank you both for also the Keys of Enoch. I mean, it was actually what brought us together, and it's actually been really our roadmap the entire time and journey, even with the sound and all the other work we've been doing. So thank you.
Well, the Keys of Enoch, again, for those who are not aware of this, shows the dove, which is a symbol of peace, harmony, and sacred language, and music coming down with 7 rays of light representing the 7 seals or chakras that are brought together into a harmonic of opportunity and joy.
But really, of course, and your names are on the book here. So thank you all for helping us, being part of it. And we talk about your work even in our chapters. So it's fabulous. And get it. I know you can get it on Amazon and probably connect it with Sacred Stories Publishing as well. So.
And behind us is the constellation we know as the Pleiades. We were just with the Hopi elders here in Arizona. And they said there's music of the stars that is increasing now within the inner consciousness. The world is going to go through some major changes, and music will help us dance with the stars and dance with human nature. So we all appreciate the great contributions we will continue to make. And so signing off from the Academy for Future Science here in Arizona to all of you worldwide. And we thank Ari for putting all of us together in conversation. So Ari, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys in Australia, thank you so much.
Much love.
And all of you out there watching this program, thank you for so much for being aware that we're going into a new future, a whole new resonance of the 5th dimension, requiring that we understand what the great prophet spoke about, that the human body is the temple of the divine spirit. We put all the pieces together. We are the trumpets. We are the celebration. We are the dance of the eternal in human form.
And it opens us to higher dimensions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Desiree Hurtak with my wife, Dr. Desiree, and we're honored to be in conversation with our colleague, Ervin Laszlo, a very outstanding scientist, futurist, composer. And our topic today is our new book entitled Sound, the subtitle of which covers many different aspects of sound. In essence, we look at the human constitution as a musical instrument, not only in terms of the music spectrum, but also in terms of consciousness studies that have been done behind the scene. I've been privileged to work at Stanford Research Institute with Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher and some of the most important studies over the last 25 years to show that every part of our body is part of a musical soundscape. And we want to configure this in terms of what we all agree upon is the music and harmony of the universe that's structured within ourselves. Every part of our body, every microtubule is a type of musical instrument, proclaiming a higher energy field that we can participate in. And if we do, perhaps we can achieve what the medieval philosophers called pax et concordia, peace and harmony.
Right. And we're particularly happy to have Ervin Laszlo with us today, because not only does he talk about peace, harmony, coherence, and how we really need to grow and evolve as part of our own system of things, but he, as a young man, was a concert pianist, and he was famous for this. So if anyone knows about sound and the power of sound, it's Ervin Laszlo. So thank you, Ervin, for being with us today. Give us a little thoughts of what you felt about sound, the book, and also your own background and how this all relates.
Well, sound means peace and harmony. Peace and harmony, I think, are the key elements that we need on this planet. These are the elements that we have neglected in the rush for power, for money in the modern times. We need to regain our oneness with the universe. And that means entering again into relationship with the rest of the universe. Now, why do I say peace and coherence? Because according to the new sciences and the quantum sciences, and I believe in that, we ourselves are vibrations. and we are harmonious vibrations, adjusted and in phase and in frequency, joining in frequency. That's when we are constitute what is known as a body, as something real in the world. Actually, we are examples of in-phase harmony. Harmony in the world becomes real, appears as a material thing, as a living thing. Actually, we are examples, exemplifications of harmony in the world. The whole universe, I think, is heading toward, when it is healthy, when it is in the right track, then it's heading toward higher levels of coherence. And higher coherence means being in phase, being in harmony with each other. So there is nothing more important to my mind in the world today than finding the way that we can join together, that we can hit the same sound. We can be part of the sound of the universe, which is a higher level of vibration of which you are a part. So your book is a wonderful guide for that. It illustrates how important sound is and how many ways that we experience sound. All that is essential in today's world. And the pioneering work that you are doing is really an example for all of us. It should be followed by everyone. We should all read that book and enter into that harmony, which is so absolutely essential in the world today. It's the big factor that we have neglected in our separation, in our overdone individualism, in our cutting ourselves off from the music of the spheres, from the music of the universe. Coming back to it, you help with that book, and I'm delighted to be able to join you in attributing the greatest importance to the book that you are doing.
Thank you. Yes, we mentioned Kepler, and of course, he was looking for that harmony even in the spheres around us, the planets. And it's interesting to see that he felt, even though the planet in one phase would be this sound, say Venus or Mars, then when it changed, it would change its phase to another. So there's this ongoing symphony. And I believe that the human body itself is a symphony. Many people say, well, give me my tone, give me my song. You know, it's a whole growth and evolution. So we may start as a young child as having a certain, we'll say, biorhythms or vibrations, and then we are to grow. That's part of what and who we are.
Our new book is
nothing more wonderful in the world than being able to experience that. I had the good fortune as a young child, from the age of 5, to enter seriously into studying piano, playing the piano, and then from the age of 9, playing in public as well. And I could experience that harmony. It wasn't a conscious experience. I couldn't analyze what it is. But when you enter deeply into music, you are in harmony with the people around you, and you are in harmony with nature, with everything around it. You are just entering a different dimension. It's an experience one has in music. Mine came through the piano. That was my instrument. But your book shows how many different ways we can experience the harmony, in chanting, in dancing, in every way, because we ourselves, when we are healthy, we are in harmony. We know to find the peace in the world so that that harmony could come forth and we could enjoy it and we could join together in celebrating our oneness in this world.
Yes, I agree completely. And of course, we've read some of your publications, your great books. We all acknowledge the limitation of Newtonian science, which has led to scientific reductionism in a world without hope, without harmony. And our inspirational mapping of research has taken us to the pyramids of Mexico and Egypt and China, where we've looked at the musicology of sacred geometry. We have also worked, as you have read in our book, with the music of plants, the structure, the microstructure of the musical vibratory levels that Marcel Vogel and others at Stanford Research Institute and even IBM were able to look at in the 1970s. But it's not until recent times that we see the big picture, the big topology that we are living in the midst of an orchestration of life. And if we open our eyes and sensitivity of our heart, we can begin to realize the contributions that we must make if we're going to have a positive future.
It's so important, these two great discoveries, the importance of harmony and the importance of the heart that you just mentioned, we can access this harmony more through our heart, intuitively, than through our brain, rationally. That is a rationalization that comes afterwards. Einstein already said imagination is more important than reason. And intuition is something that takes us there. And intuition comes through the heart. And through the heart, we discover that we can be, and when we are healthy and good, then we are in harmony. So it's a wonderful way to lead our way toward a better, more peaceful world. It's calling attention to the importance of harmony and calling to the attention that through our heart, we can become aware of this harmony and we ourselves become harmonious. As Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change that we need in the harmony in the world. We can be that harmony because when we are healthy, when we are relating healthily and well and ethically to other people around us, to the world around us, then we are in tune, we are in symphony. This is to say we are coherent, we are in harmony.
Thank you. Well, Ervin, you also have a recent book that was by the same publisher, Sacred Stories. Can you show us that and tell us a little bit about what you're doing with your own personal research?
Well, I'm doing two books actually. One is just been published. It's I don't know if you can see it. It's called the Survival Imperative.
Perfect.
And it's a very ambitious title, but what I'm describing is the way that we can enter into a harmonious, peaceful relationship with each other, and why that is an absolute imperative for our survival. If we continue on this disharmonious, separatist way, and which we have embarked, especially in the last century and second half of 20th century, and now in the 21st century, that could lead to literally to a dead end, to an extinction, because it leads to separation. It leads to the always searching for me and mine, and never mind you and others around us. You know, this desperate rush for own immediate advantage is a very dangerous approach to go. And I'm trying to show that the survival imperative for us is to shift paradigm, to shift to a oneness paradigm, to shift to evolution. Evolution in the universe is a progression toward oneness, toward harmony, toward coherence. Just think how it started in the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. What was there? There were swirling clouds of plasma, randomly connected, if not connected at all, actually, just being together. And out of that universal chaos evolved gradually the quanta that are basic building blocks of the universe, and the quanta joining together into stable atoms, which are themselves harmony in the universe. And out of them comes the molecules and the cells and the groups of cells of living organisms and the examples, communities, and larger units of living organisms, which we call coherent oneness on the planet. This Gaia system is the highest level of harmony that the universe has achieved in this corner of space and time. We are very lucky, we are part of it, but we are not very wise because we don't act like it. We don't really treasure it. And your book helps us to act like that together with my book, because you're all searching for the imperative for our survival, which is also the imperative for our thrival. If we survive, we cannot, we must thrive, otherwise we die. Forward
Okay.
or down. We can't stay the way we are. And we both, with our books, hope to move things forward toward that higher level of oneness, which is evolution in the universe.
Well, I actually believe that all life is vibration. And when you say even the stars, how they work together, I mean, it is this harmony of vibration, of sound. And, you know, music is actually, as you know, when you were a younger man, and you probably still play somewhat today, I hope. Anyway, that it's bringing all this together. And we have to see ourselves as being part of this greater harmony.
Yes, in
And
fact,
we
you
can
could
see
retittle
this.
the concept of the Big Bang to be the big breath of vibration that put all of these
Yes.
various particles of microevolution into a structure, a form out of which we are one evolutionary process. But the importance of our work has been able to work from the smallest micro level of insect population and even animal communication through various sounds with the dolphins, to that which is in outer space that some of our colleagues who were NASA scientists were able to pick up on in terms of the background sounds of the planets themselves. And so, as the Greeks would say, there is the music of the spheres that we're beginning to really understand as part of the university without walls.
And actually, right now, scientists are looking for the hum of the universe. They're actually looking for that. So I think we all need to be part of that greater hum. Go ahead, Ervin, tell us a little bit more.
And we can experience that. I have taken part in, and I'm more and more aware of, experiments with the EEG patterns of our brain. Even though I say that the heart is our key instrument for perceiving the world around us, the brain can enter into different states. And when you enter a deeper state beyond the alpha level, going down to the delta, and away from the superficial beta levels, then we see that the wave patterns of our EEG waves becomes harmonious, becomes a pattern. And this has been recorded, this has been photographed. And when we enter into these deeply altered states, we are producing harmonious waves. What's more, our waves join together and influence other people's brain waves when they enter into meditation and into deeply altered states, or a prayerful state, or a musical state. So all this really shows it's not imagination. We truly are harmony, and we can reach higher levels of harmony when we experience it. One way to do it is through entering into a deeper state of consciousness. A way to do it is to listen to the heart. Another way to do it is to listen to music. And still another way is to do it is as you are doing it, experimenting and looking at the science of harmony from the micro level to the cosmic level.
And Erwin, when we were in Egypt, Desiree and I with musicians, were doing experiments of harmony and harmonics. I being trained as a singer as well as a composer, and I was able to hit a frequency, and here I'm showing this picture to our audience, of golden light inside the Grand Gallery of the Great Pyramid of Giza, Egypt, where the sound vibrations off the walls of the interior of the pyramid actually momentarily produced a standing columnar wave of energy, which resulted in this golden light that was seen for a few seconds. This, shall we say, opened the eyes of the Egyptian scientists who were with us to realize that perhaps the Great Pyramid was built as a type of sound structure to bring consciousness up, not only for the sociological balance of ancient society, but actually to represent the breathing, the partory process of vibration, which raises our mind to higher states of creativity and oneness.
And we believe that's true for many of the sacred areas around the world. But what you were also saying, like the alpha frequency, and it's interesting that there's that Schumann resonance connected with the earth. I feel that in a certain sense, the earth is trying to help us to raise our consciousness by that Schumann resonance. That's the alpha frequency, which gives us, we'll say, sometimes some aspects of, tranquility and happiness and relaxation.
We call 7.8 to approximately 8.2 hertz. And scientists on the top of the Pyramid of Egypt realized that the very top of the Great Pyramid of Giza, Egypt, was working with that frequency of 7 to 8 hertz, something that was very magical. But the scientists who were with us at one point began to dance on top of the pyramid on top. As you see here, when we began to do the musical experimentation, the pyramid began to quaver slightly, giving the sense of rhythm and dance. And so all throughout history, we see the sacred traditions of music implicit in architecture, sacred geometry, and the use of the voice to open the heart, the mind, and the spirit to oneness and joy, making us cosmo-creators or co-creators of the universal sound.
But aren't we lucky that we live in the universe where the highest level of evolution is an evolution toward coherence and toward oneness and toward harmony. And so this is now our sacred duty to promote that development, to enter into coherence with each other and help the cells, the organs of our body reach that frequency, that's 7.8 frequency which you're talking about, to become healthy, to become super coherent. I like that term, super coherence. That's where we are coherent within each other. All the cells, all the quanta of our body are coherent so that they form one whole, harmonious whole, and we are coherent with other systems around us. So we are part of a larger whole, forming that universe, a whole that we call a Gaia system, is the sacred oneness in the world. We are lucky because that's a beautiful, experienceable condition, being in harmony with the universe. We just talked about it up till now, but we can increasingly experience it. And with my books and with yours, we try to show how this can be experienced and how this is not only a privilege, but actually a necessity, a command, a moral imperative to enter into that higher state so that we can live up to the potential of who we are, potentially harmonious, evolving beings, forming a part of that larger whole, which we call the Gaia system of the planet.
I know that there's certain African tribes when the environment is not working so well for them, and they will sit and talk and say, what are we doing wrong? Where's our consciousness going wrong that we are having these, we'll say catastrophes? And, that is a good process because we actually have to question, because we are and can be in harmony with nature. I mean, we see that even with the Native Americans. They were able to do certain rain dances and sounds and frequencies that would bring rain. So it's really realizing that we are part of that greater harmony. And when things are out of balance, we have to wonder why. And we have to change the way we think, change the way we do to get back into balance, because we really are, as you said, part of the greater Gaia.
And we're sitting here before this picture or mandala of nature, showing us that there is a type of coherency that can be expanded into super coherency from the very seed of a plant that we have measured using the techniques of Hans Jenny from Switzerland, and seeing how certain sound structures actually enhance the sense of sacred geometry. And by studying sacred geometry through biofeedback, many of our students at the University of California learn that they could co-create with music and certain forms of sacred geometry simultaneously. So the ancients understood this. This is why they built their temples, their pyramids, their ashrams with the concept of sacred music and sacred geometry.
Well, this ancient knowledge is that we have got to rediscover again and allow to practice it. This is what I and my co-workers been calling the new paradigm. You have created also this Institute for New Paradigm Research, which carries my name, the Laszlo Institute. And I think the whole idea there is that the new paradigm is not a paradigm of separation. It's a paradigm of joining together, not artificially, not just I plus you somehow being connected. I and you are becoming one. This is what we learned from the quantum sciences. We are not just externally joined. Things are connected intrinsically. So that's what happens to one, happens to the others as well. And when we enter into this higher harmony, I think that process actually carries over to people around us, which gives us this marvelous opportunity that we don't need literally to shake up everybody on this planet and to start thinking in harmonious and evolutionary terms. It's enough to start being that ourselves, because our consciousness is beginning to influence consciousnesses around us, so that we need to be the critical mass that will change the world, because our consciousness is part of the world. We are part of that world. We just ignored it. So let's put it to right again. Your book helps us to do that. I try to lay that out. I'm now working on a new book to be published shortly, which is the Great Upshift, which talks about how we can find peace and harmony on Earth. That's a subtitle, peace and harmony on the Earth. So I'm looking for that, precisely what you are describing in your book. And we are asking our collaborators, 3 dozen illustrious thought leaders to join us in finding ways in which you can achieve that higher level of harmony. That's the task before us. And that's a sacred task. It's a necessary task. We have a short time at our disposal before crisis becomes irreversible. We still have time, just at the nick of time. And books and work like you're doing, and like I'm trying to do with my colleagues, are really a measure of last resort. But we still come in the nick of time, and let's make the most of that. We are lucky to have publishers who help us to put this forward. So let's join together in our publications, in our activities, in our thinking already, so that we can create a higher harmony together.
Thank you. Well, just a few final last words. Maybe we'll go around one more time to just share. I did want to say something that I know made your career shift a lot as well, is the fact of quantum consciousness, to realize that we are all non-local beings. So as you said, if you can grow yourself, you're actually influencing what Lynn McTaggart calls the consciousness field. And so we're able to send that energy around the world. And oftentimes we've worked with many people in prayers for peace, because we feel that that makes a difference, because we can get into that field and literally work to neutralize the animosities. It's amazing what the consciousness field is all about. And of course, we don't feel it's within us. We are just part of the consciousness field.
And we're happy that this is the most amazing time to be alive, to see the quantum change and to be the avant-garde. And again, I'm saying this to the audience. We have had the privilege to work with the top scientists, the upper 1% at Stanford Research Institute and various universities, producing this book, Mind Dynamics in Space and Time, which shows we have the ability to be non-local, to be here, but also in a parallel dimension or a higher dimension of vibration to which we can administer co-creativity, insights of love, purpose of unity in terms of ecumenical or universal ideas. And so we're pushing the envelope from all directions, and we honor your work as a statesman, a person who, through your work with the Club of Budapest and other situations with our mutual colleagues, has laid down, as it were, a whole new criteria of how we must participate, but it must be through vibration and harmony, of which it cannot heal the division between the left and right side of the human brain and intellectual process. We must purely be for this quantum change, but it must come through the love, the joy, and the wisdom of the cosmic mind within the human heart, vibrating in all directions, a sense of peace, maturity, and quantum change.
So some final words, Ervin. Thank you for being with us today. Go ahead, give us a final.
Well, I agree that this is a good time to be alive. It's a wonderful time. Change is coming, and change is still influenceable. We can still act on it. We can still make our evolution on this planet conscious. And this is an old dream which can be realized, because we are in a process of rapid change, which is known in the system sciences as a bifurcation, a sudden change, a leap in another direction. Of course, a bifurcation can lead to a branch that goes down toward extinction and chaos. And that is if we are not lucky, and if we ignore this oneness, then we risk that, obviously. The 6 major extinction on this planet could involve the human species. That would be a cosmic catastrophe. But there are signs that we are pulling out, that we are pulling toward an upshift toward a higher level of consciousness, and consciousness that joins us instead of separating us. So it's an exciting time to be alive, exciting time to talk about things, to write about things, and to manage to bring this idea forward. In the next few years will be critical. They're already critical. But the critical element will be the human consciousness, the human world, creating the critical mass that will shift the world in an upward direction, toward oneness, toward harmony, connected through and with love. That's the message that we are bringing forward, and it's very much needed, and it's catching on already. It's an encouraging time to live. It's an exciting time. I look forward to working with you and like-minded people to bring this message forward so that it nucleates and catches hold and creates that movement that will finally change the world, change it in time and for the better.
Thank you, Ervin. And we move ahead with this publication, your new books, as we go from Homo sapiens sapiens to Homo universalis, universal humanity, as we begin to prepare a young generation to understand what the ancient Greeks, the ancient peoples of India understood as the music of the spheres, by being really the composition, the activation, and the proclamation of higher unity of heart, mind, and spirit. May we be blessed.
And we invite everyone to join us in this greater music collectively for Gaia and for our own evolution. We thank you.
Let's join together. Thank you for this conversation.